What's the inevitable conclusion of that Ponzi scheme?
It just keeps getting worse. That's what we have right now. So like you look at the difference between the 2007, 2008, the housing price bubble that then crashed and then caused the whole ripple effect to the recession, which then led to the whole concept of too big to fail and the TARP bailouts. Add a zero to that. And that's what we're facing. This is a whole, this is an exponential, this is a whole order of magnitude higher of what we're facing now. Like we're literally, instead of hundreds of billions and trillions, we're now talking trillions and tens of trillions. And it's hard to quantify what the ripple effects are going to be, and they just keep feeding into it. And that's why you see this they talk about the yes.
I love this
40% of all the money that has ever been made has been made in the last 2 years.
Oof.
This is also
to be fair,
savings. Yeah, you can explain that.
This spike is when they said your savings account is now a checking account.
Right.
So they put savings in a circulation.
Right.
Okay.
So, but look at the hockey stick after the fact.
Yeah, it kept going.
That's the creation of currency.
And I think they did that to mask that they were about to start printing and get that upper diagonal, that big one, what is it, like a 80-degree angle instead of the 27-degree angle? Yeah.
To make it look less severe. Yeah, and I'm glad you pointed that out because this doesn't look like a 40% increase. This looks like a 600% increase, but it's right. It's the definitional change that happened. Thank you for
So what we got to do is get a graph where we remove the vertical line and just watch it go from the 27-degree angle to the 80-degree angle.
It's still ugly.
Yeah, it's still not good.
And this is only up until 2020, like August of 2020, it looks like. What's going on now?
And what's funny is the fractional reserve policy changed just before COVID.
Yeah, it was like April 2020 or something.
Yeah, it used to be that you needed a reserve to loan out money, and then they went, we're getting rid of that. You can just loan as much as you want.
Yep. 0% fractional reserve. Imagine playing a game of Monopoly, and all of us are playing by the rules, okay? And every single, I'm going to make you the bad guy here, sorry. All of us are playing by the rules, right? Like, you roll your dice, you go the number of things, you go the number of number of spaces, you decide whether you want to buy, hold, whatever, and then when it's Mary's turn, she goes to the banker and says, give me 1 trillion Monopoly notes and stick them all with the bill for it. That's our economy. And the problem is the price of living is going up the same for everyone. But the closer you are to that money supply at its initial printout, at its initial disbursement, the less affected you are by the double-digit price inflation, and the more you're exposed to the triple, quadruple-digit increase overnight of your wealth. And that's what we're seeing here.
Here's another important factor here. Bitcoin dropped, I think, to like 19K or whatever.
Yep.
And everyone's screaming in the media, and they're like, oh. And I'm just like, I don't know, I don't care. I'm ignoring it. And that's the deal. When you have money, you don't care that it went down. You're like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it anyway.
Yeah.
And then after a year, 2 years, 3 years, it starts to recover. So when people see this stuff and they actually need their money and they're seeing it tank and they're like, I can't ignore that, and they're forced to sell it at garbage rates, they become poorer.
Yeah.
Rich people who are more resilient to the change in monetary value and recessions and depressions
Yeah.
can ignore it until the recovery happens and then retain all that value.
Yes.
So the rich get richer, the poor get poorer.
Exactly. I would also like to note that Bitcoin has crashed down to its 2017 high. Its previous all-time high before this last increase. There's an old video. I wish they had kept updating it. It's about 7 years old now, but it's called "Don't Buy Bitcoin. It Crashes." And it's this guy going, there was this one time Bitcoin was worth, and I'm making up the numbers, but it's pretty much like this. One time it was worth 0.1 cents, and then it went up to 5 cents, and then it crashed all the way down to 2 cents. And then this other time it was worth $3.25, and then it went all the way up to $25, and then it crashed all the way down to $7.80. And like he keeps doing this, and he goes, and so the moral of the story is don't get Bitcoin. It crashes. This is the cycle of parabolic growth, usually some sideways trading, and then a crash down to higher than the previous all-time high.
Yeah.
And now the gaps are obviously not as wide as they used to be. It's a lot easier for something to go from $1 to $10 than to go from 20,000 to 200,000, right? Like there's only so much market cap it can have. But the pattern's still playing out. This is not financial advice, by the way. I'm just a Jew on the internet. I'm not a financial advisor.
But you look at the way the dollar is going, and I don't know how anybody could have faith in their paychecks at this point.
Really?
Yeah, the recession that's headed our way. They're saying there's going to be rolling blackouts. Do you guys see this reporting?
No.
Rolling blackouts, food shortages. Food prices. So it's you know what I'm really proud of. In 2020, I started doing the emergency food sponsorships.
Yeah.
And then like Vice made like a hit piece, and they were like, haha, what a loser. And then I'm like, man, if you bought that food in 2020, it was, I think, like half the cost of what it is today.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you'd be sitting on food that lasts for 25 years at half the price. You'd be like, oh, wow, it's a good thing I bought it 2 years ago. We're going to last 23 more years.
Yeah.
You buy it today, it's more expensive.
Jim Baker has the last laugh.
Even if you just decided to eat it today, you got your food at half price.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's crazy because, I was talking about this in 2020, 2021, food shortages are coming. What happens? Putin's price hike. Whether or not you believe any of that stuff, the fact is
It came.
There is a shortage of wheat, which is going to be mind-bogglingly devastating.
Yep.
Not as much to us, but Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, all these Middle Eastern countries, Turkey, these countries that get much of their grain and food from Russia and Ukraine,
Yep.
they ain't going to be getting it. Yep. So what are they going to do? They're going to be very, very hungry and very angry, and we are going to be watching. We're going to be sitting there, and we're going to be like, haha, remember when we used to watch CNN when they were news? No. Well, let's put it on anyway. You'll turn it on, and you'll just see food riots, water and food riots.
Yeah.
And we'll have some of that here. During the pandemic, remember those lines of cars for miles waiting for food because people didn't have any? If you think it's bad now, if you think it was bad back then, right now there's nobody producing.
Yeah.
So not only do we have a fertilizer shortage, which led to predictions of a crop yield dropping by 40%, diesel potential shortage, meaning farmers won't even be able to harvest. And if they do, it'll be substantially more expensive to harvest, and there will be substantially less food, meaning for more than one reason, the cost of food is going to skyrocket.
Yeah. It's almost sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was going to say, and then people are going to, that's when people break down and go crazy.
Yeah, it's almost as if massively expanding the monetary supply and then just handing it out leads to a massive increase in prices because you have much more money chasing the same amount of goods and services, and then that same amount of goods and services actually goes down because people say, I got all this money, I don't need to work, and so now you've got the disruptions from that. It's a perfect storm for what we're experiencing.
You know what we need? Seeing this problem happening.
Yes.
We need to figure out a way to start over. Some kind of like a reset, but a bigger one.
A great one.
A great reset.
Yeah, like a really big.
Make resets great again.
Yeah, like a great reset.
Yeah.
And then maybe when the people are going to lose everything they own in this, but we need this great reset.
Yeah.
And then after that, they may own nothing, but they will be happy.
They'll be happy.
They'll be happy.
Yeah, that
Be
sounds
happy.
pretty good.
So it makes you wonder.
You said it was great. That you sold me at great, honestly.
Yeah, if it's called great, then it must be.
But it makes you. But listen. It makes you wonder when they advocate for the Great Reset, literally, like calling it that.
Yeah.
And then they implement these policies that have just destroyed everything.
Yeah.
It's almost like they want it to happen.
I'm looking at the M1 money supply. I'm kind of investigating it right now, and it does show up until May. I'm seeing it up until May of 2022. It's at the 80% increase until about April 2022, and then it looks like it's actually gone down.
Yeah, because that's
slightly a little bit.
Yeah, because the Federal Reserve has started tightening the rates. They've started increasing the rates. The reason that's happening, that is a consequence of banks being able to lend money or get lent money at effectively 0%. Once you factor in for inflation, they're actually getting it at negative interest rate. They can turn around and put it out there to us, to the consumer, at a low interest rate and just make a bunch of free money, basically. It's literal free money. So by raising the rates, and then buy property with it,
and
right?
Then bankrupt people and then seize their assets.
Destroy their lives and walk away holding the bag.
Because people won't be able to pay back the interest on their loans, et cetera, things like that.
Oh, once everything crashes, absolutely. That's all the foreclosures that happened in 2007, 2008.
So we need a law to protect people from foreclosures, because I imagine BlackRock and other banks are going to try and steal people's houses.
You need to just stop. You need to get, first of all, you need to get currency out of the control of the government. Government is a political entity that tries to implement political goals for political purposes. It should not be in charge of the money supply, because this is what happens when you have a political entity in charge of the money supply. They implement the money supply not for the best use of its consumers, because they're a monopoly. They don't care about the consumers or the people using it. They do it for their political purposes, which in this case is to try to push along an economy that they don't want to correct, and making things worse in the process, and paying off the cronies who sponsored them into office.
Sure, but you have to recognize some people are just really dumb, right?
Oh, there's that too. Yeah.
And because they're so dumb, you need better men to rule over them.
Strong men.
Strong men.
Strong men for a great reset.
Absolutely.
Why has no one else thought of this?
I know, right?
Yeah,
Like it took us coming together to finally figure out what the problem is.
Haven't you? Did you ever? Don't you remember that speech from Michael Bloomberg when he said tax the poor? He said, poor people spend money on dumb things.
Yes.
So we should tax their money so we can choose for them what to buy.
A populist message, if there ever was one.
Right. He wanted to tax large drinks because he said poor people are stupid and buy big sugary drinks and get fat.
Yeah.
So let's put a big tax on it so they can't afford it anymore, so they stop doing it.
That
What
worked.
they're doing with
That
gasoline.
works.
So you say get money out of the government or out of politics, or what? I don't know. How did you phrase it
Right.
exactly?
So the government needs to stop being involved in what money is, because if you allow the market to determine what money is, now instead of having a political entity openly manipulating the monetary supply for political purposes, right, and destroying the wealth and the well-being of the vast majority of people that are involved in this, instead now you have competing entities who, because they want to be, have their dominant market share, have a vested interest in doing the opposite. They want their money to be deflationary, or at the very least, not have the value go down over time, have the value of the money increase over time, have the case use and the ability to use it go up over time, have it be an effective and better thing. This is what we apply to everything else, right? Like, you don't want to have to buy your car from the government car company, right? Why would you want to have to get your money from the government money company?
The Constitution.
And hold on, sorry, real quick.
Yeah.
You not only would you have to buy your car from the government, but they have a computer chip in it where every year it goes 10 miles an hour slower.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
Literally.
I gotta get a new car because the car's too slow.
Yeah,
I gotta go back to the government.
this is like planned obsolescence for money.
Right.
So
Right?
this is like Federal Reserve tactics, which is a private company. Obviously, they're in cahoots with the they're monopolized by the government. But like Congress is supposed to be in charge of the monetary supply, according to Congress.
Yeah, so it
according
should
to
be
the
amended.
Constitution.
Like, no, that's the thing. Like, yes, and by the way, this is why I don't consider myself a constitutionalist. I think the Constitution is a useful way for us to use it defensively to protect our rights. But at any point, there are times in the Constitution where it lays out things that blatantly are bad for us and violate our rights. And this would be an example of that. I don't think that government should be involved in money. They've proven themselves to be a bad steward of it. And even if you replace the Federal Reserve, because I understand what you're saying, they're technically a private entity. If you replace the Federal Reserve instead with...
Well, you drop something. There you go.
Yes. If you replace the Federal Reserve instead with just a federal bank, it's effectively the same thing, but just with different steps. Like,
You don't need a federal bank. That's what I just handed you.
But we could.
That's the Bank of Columbus $10 bill.
This was a bank note, a private bank
Private
note,
bank.
right? This
And
is
it
what
was
I'm talking
valuable.
about.
I think if it was Congress, we'd be able to audit it, or it would be like part of it being the Congress's bank is that the People's Bank is that we would audit it. It would constantly be all public.
In theory, and could it be better? Yeah, but you still have a centrally planned authority, right? So why not instead allow a market-derived series of notes, or in this case, it's probably going to be more electronic, but you could also have physical notes. There are plenty of people out there that don't want the electronic notes. They want the physical notes.
But look,
why not let the market determine what is best for people?
Because the people who are in power are friends with those who control the policy that enrich them, and why would they ever walk away from
That's
that?
the correct
Right,
answer.
they collude. Well, no, because people collude and buy up huge amounts of stuff and then sell them off all at once, and then they work the market. And so we need a government to protect us from monopolies.
But that's not what
free
happens.
money from the Fed, and they buy up houses, and then you are a working class family, and you're like, it's time to buy our first house. This house is going for $200,000, and you say, I will pay asking. And they go, great, we'll get back to you. And they call you back and say, we got an offer from BlackRock or whatever that's at $240,000. And you're like, I can't afford that. And they're like, well, sorry. And that's what keeps happening to people.
Yeah. And the thing is, a lot of what the crony, and at this point, it's sort of like a corporatist, fascist extension of government, some of these companies like BlackRock and so forth. The reason they're able to do it is because they get free money that's underwritten by you and by future generations that haven't even been born yet. You reintroduce, and I'm not saying necessarily this, but you reintroduce having the money being determined by the market level. They have to play by the same rules as the rest of us. And yes, they're wealthier, but they're now going to have to deal with the same supply and demand issues. They're not going to be able to just, Bitcoin. They're not going to be able to just print out endless streams of money and have you pay the bill for it, have you pay the debt for it with the interest. And, and then when everything falls apart, they get bailed out, and that's paid for by more money that got printed out. That whole thing goes away when you take away the ability for them to just expand the monetary supply whenever they want to pay off their own.
This is why I like
can-
cryptocurrency,
people
and this
can-
is why it's frustrating when you get progressives who are acting like crypto's a really, really bad thing. It's just like you're just shilling out for the establishment.
It's literally the way out of it.
People can create infinite amounts of crypto right now without regulation.
Absolutely.
That's endless inflation, just the same problem. But
Only
it's
if
with
people
businessmen.
value those.
Only
new
if people
cryptos.
value. Exactly. It comes into this is subjective value, right? Like I can make a coin tomorrow based on the Ethereum chain or whatever. I call it Spike Coin, and I go, hey everyone, go get some Spike Coin, and they go, great. What's your case use? What are you fulfilling that isn't already being fulfilled? And I go, Spike Coin. That's not going to work. No one's going to want it. Some people will get it as a joke, but it's not going to go anywhere.
It's and on top of that, I can print a bunch of cards and I can call them Timbucks.
Yeah.
And I can be like, this is paper Timbucks. They're worth so much money. Hey, and people are going to be like, I don't know. If I value it, I value it.
If you value it, you value
Right
it.
now, all the people with the Bitcoin and the Ethereum, like they're huge people that own massive amounts of that stuff, would own the market essentially without any government oversight. And then they would buy up all the corn, and then they would raise the price of corn 13 times and then sell it back to the people.
Well, first of all, are there Bitcoin billionaires? Absolutely, but if you look at the distribution of that wealth, for lack of a better term, it's far less centralized than you would see, for example, where you have less than 1% of the population that owns 20-30% of everything. That's certainly not happening. And with if you took all the crypto bros out there, they're certainly not going to have anywhere near that same market level that exists in this current system, because they can't, because it has to be a system that reflects the actual market demands and supply and demand, as opposed to a political entity, a centrally planned political entity, saying, all right, well, you guys helped get me into office, and so, I'm paying you off, and here's however many $1 trillion. I'm going to give you a $600 check. You stay right there. You should make sure to vote for me. And also you're getting the debt for this guy. This all fell apart. Okay, well, we're going to print out more money and bail you out because you're too big to fail. You got to pay for this. You're definitely not too big to fail. That's the system that's built.
That's the worst. The Federal Reserve unauditable system is the worst by far.
Yeah.
But I think that crypto unregulated by the people could get as bad.
There is no utopian system, but the regulation comes in place if suddenly there's a reason for there to be suspicion of how Bitcoin is being used. It's out in the open and people can see it. Or if it's not out in the open, if there's some coin that you can't see the back end of it, you can't see the ledger of it, it is centrally controlled, people are going to say, why would I use this when I can use this that's so much better? That's what happens from the market. It's like using the car analogy. If this car company suddenly is making cars that are absolute garbage, you know it, and you go buy a car somewhere else. You could do this with anything: chicken sandwiches, skateboards, whatever. It doesn't matter. Having more providers makes you more likely to be able to get a better value, and for them to have an incentivization of serving you as the consumer. But when you bypass that through central planning, now they don't have to serve you as the consumer. They only have to serve the political class that they put in office, and that's a much easier thing.
I'm interested in getting Mary. I know you're an expert on fiscal policy and fintech. So what are your thoughts on all this?
I mean, I'm trying to think of the right questions to ask, but
it's very esoteric.
A little bit.
Well, with the wallet, like with crypto wallets, it looks like there's a lot of people because everyone has a wallet, but it could be one guy that has 900,000 wallets.
I mean,
this argument doesn't track. Look, I could buy a bunch of rocks, and then I can go around being like, Tim Rocks, they're only mine, and you can't get Tim Rocks from anybody else. So if I buy a bag of gravel, it's true. That bag of gravel is exclusively Tim Rocks.
he could own all that gravel.
I could own them all. And then people are like, we want it. We'll give you bread, we'll give you labor. And I'm like, giving out rocks. That's no difference between that and any token.
Just use Bitcoin as your example. So,
Bitcoin is decentralized. It looks
decentralized.
I can buy Bitcoin, and then I've actually put money into the system, and then I would not just want to lose the value of that.
Yeah,
so other people can value it because they know there's a market around it with real value where people are willing to buy and trade.
At some point, farmers are going to be like, we accept crypto. And you'll be like, great, what kind? And they'll choose. We accept Bitcoin. We accept Ethereum. And if you don't have those two cryptos,
then you exchange it for that.
But the value of those are going to skyrocket. Who owns them when they decide it's this proof of stake thing that they want to move towards, away from proof of work?
Right.
Who's creating the tokens? It's who has the tokens. Those are the ones that get to make the decisions.
The people that have them.
Yeah, those are the ones that are rich right now. They want to move it to a system where the rich people get to make the decisions.
Right. So what could happen right now? What could happen?
I'm not saying what we have right now is an ass. It's terrible.
What could happen is that people build faith in a cryptocurrency that is centralized and controlled by rich, powerful people. That doesn't change the fact that the Fed is bad and we should find an alternate system, and crypto is pretty good.
Yeah, so market-derived systems don't necessarily not allow for the centralization of wealth. But in order to be able to do that, you have to serve the consumer. If it's market-derived and not centrally planned, in order to be able to grow, maintain, and expand wealth, you have to be serving the consumer better than your competitors, especially if you want to expand it. And if you want to maintain it, you have to at least be doing it as well as your competitors. In a system that isn't market derived, in a system that is centrally planned through a centralized monopoly of violence such as government, instead what you have is a system where I don't have to serve you. I just have to be friends. You're the bad guy again. I have to be friends with Mary, the government, who I just so happen to bankroll into office, and friend Mary too, who's on the other side, and make sure that they're my friends and that they give me whatever I want. So now instead of having to do the often mind-numbing labor to make sure that I am serving you and everyone else as best as possible, and where the consumer is king, instead all I have to do is spend a pittance of those resources just keeping them in office, keeping them fat and happy, and then getting them to give me whatever I want. That is inherently a system that feeds everything has to feed a profit motive.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.